I built a computer with After Effects 3D Workspace in mind. This video is going to be a little different than the last video. We're going to skip the concepts and just build a beast. Also, is an AMD RX GPU good for Adobe After Effects Advanced 3D Workspace? Let's learn from my frustration. Let's get straight into it. I need a workstation computer that is optimized and will continue to support my vision for this channel. Especially since I'm just one person, I need to minimize processing time to get content out as fast as I'd like. Of course, I also need to minimize cost as I have failed to acquire Sugar Mama, unfortunately. A company may not include something like cost in their requirements or take it as a given, but I felt this is important enough for me to include in my list. I would like to have some potential option for upgradability without having to build or buy a whole new computer. Ideally, I would be able to get at least one CPU upgrade on the platform. This way I can improve my video throughput for less than an upfront cost of a whole new computer in the future. The primary reason I want and need to build a new computer for work on this channel is the software that I will be using. The majority of the softwares that I will be working with to create my videos do not officially support my AMD RX 7900 XT. This has resulted in some applications being buggy, slow, or sometimes not even functional. So I need a workstation that excels at Adobe After Effects in the Advanced 3D Workspace, Adobe Premiere Pro, SolidWorks, Visualize, and XStar. Spoiler alert, XStar is a 3D scanner software that I plan on using with a 3D scanner in the future. I've spent quite some time researching optimal specs, people experiences, and my own experiences trying to figure out what is actually required of a workstation for my workflow. I found that Adobe After Effects Advanced 3D Workspace has the least amount of information surrounding it, probably because it only recently officially released. Premiere Pro and SolidWorks have system requirements that are negligible in comparison to After Effects. The biggest issue that I've had with the computer I've been using before this workstation build is the GPU, an AMD RX 7900 XT. After Effects' Advanced 3D engine does not have support for AMD's gaming-focused line of GPUs. It does support Radeon Pro cards, but most notably, all NVIDIA GPUs made after a certain date are all supported according to Adobe's site. Visualize also requires an NVIDIA GPU to include transparency when rendering a model. Also, XStar states that an NVIDIA GPU is also required due to specifically using CUDA cores. Even though my 7900 XT was not supported, I still moved forward with editing and animation. I found that the GPU was being utilized, but the optimization was clearly not there. It took a very long time to render previews, and it even took over an hour to render out 3 seconds of this relatively simple project. This did not seem right, even at 4K 60 FPS. I saw other YouTubers having no performance issues during their demonstrations, so I took the plunge and I got a 4080 Super. Fortunately, I managed to get one for just, in quotations, $1,000 on sale. I got interesting results when the only system change was changing out the Sapphire Pulse RX 7900 XT for the Zotac Trinity Black Edition 4080 Super. With the same export settings, the video rendered out by the 4080 Super seems to have better texture quality and light quality, and even better black levels. Interestingly, I only see this effect when I open the videos up in Windows Media Player. When I bring the clips into Premiere Pro, they end up looking identical. I've heard that NVIDIA has better video encoding quality, but it seems like there may be something else going on here due to software support. When scrubbing through the timeline, responsiveness is only a little better than the 7900 XT, however, the total render time is dramatically different. The only difference between these two render runs is the GPU. Remember, this is only 3 seconds of video in the Advanced 3D Workspace with two complex models interacting. These models are complex due to all the pins on the back of the CPUs. I even cleared all the cache right before each run. The 7900 XT finished the render in an hour and 14 minutes, but the 4080 Super slaughtered that render time, only taking 9 minutes and 56 seconds. This is a clear indicator that official support for GPU in Adobe After Effects Advanced 3D Workspace is incredibly important. The officially supported NVIDIA GPU rendered the clip 7.4 times faster than the unsupported AMD RX GPU. Visualize is also an example where the optimization of NVIDIA cards is leagues ahead of AMD RX line of GPUs. Unfortunately, I forgot to get a screen capture of the AMD GPU orbiting the same model. but hopefully you can trust me when I say the 4080 Super is mind-bogglingly better than the 7900 XT. I had to wait around for about 30 seconds for the AMD GPU to get a usable view, while the 4080 Super is maybe 1 second. Really, it's more like instant. I cannot confirm this, but this may have something to do with the fact that Visualize uses ray tracing, and any PC enthusiast knows that AMD is far behind the Nvidia in ray tracing technology. The render time improvement wasn't nearly as impressive as in After Effects Advanced 3D, but when my system had the 7900 XT installed, the render time was 21 minutes and 1 second. The 4080 Super beats this with a render time of 14 minutes and 30 seconds, a 31% decrease in render time. As you can see, the AMD 7600X wasn't quite keeping the 4080 Super fed in Visualize, so that render time may drop even further with the completion of the new workstation. Speaking of the new workstation, let's now get on to the final build and specs. The spec list for this new workstation is quite the doozy, so you may want to stay seated for this one. I'll start with the Be Quiet Dark Base DX computer case with a slew of 140mm fans, a Be Quiet 850W Dark Base PSU, an Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 420mm AIO, an AMD R9 7900X, G-Skill Triton Z Neo 96GB of DDR5 5600 CL40 RAM, that's two 48GB DIMMs, Zotac Trinity Black Edition 4080 Super, a 1TB Acer Predator NVMe SSD for the Windows install, 3 1TB Crucial NVMe SSDs, 2 of which are in RAID 0 just for After Effects and Premiere Pro's caching, and finally an MSI X670E Gaming plus Wi-Fi motherboard. I can transform so many matrices with this bad boy. Interestingly, the new workstation appears to be almost a minute slower at the CPU collision render, although there seem to be many factors at play that could vary. The slightly slower render time in this application would far outweigh the benefits I can see from the other apps though. However, when it comes to working in the timeline, the 96 gigs of RAM makes working with longer length videos much more bearable since much of the timeline can be stored in RAM. I do also have those 2 SSDs in RAID 0, like I said before, that act as a cache drive, helping playback performance greatly. I didn't come up with a way to measure the difference, but you can trust me and other YouTubers that this is definitely something that you should be considering when creating a workstation for Adobe After Effects. As a side note, OpenGL rendering is not supported for the Advanced 3D workspace. You should double check that your project settings are set to CUDA and not OpenGL if you are working with Advanced 3D. The Visualize orbiting performance, while not in draft mode, is excellent. However, the render time of the channel backplate only dropped to 14 minutes and 2 seconds from the 14 minutes and 30 seconds from my previous computer with the 4080 Super installed. This suggests to me that the CPU is not nearly as impactful to render times as the GPU is in this case. Unfortunately, I didn't have a completed video to test the export times in Premiere Pro, but there's plenty of other data out there where you can see that moving from a 6-core 12-threaded CPU to a 12-core 24-threaded CPU significantly helps with export times. In the future, I will try the XStar 3D scanning software when I'm able to get the 3D scanner. I have a feeling that it will be heavily GPU dependent, but that's a future question for me to answer. What I've learned from this experience is that when working in a modern 3D workspace, the GPU should not be skimped on. If on a limited budget, go with a lower core count CPU that tends to have a higher per core performance, but throw a bucket of money at Nvidia and hope that you'll end up at least getting a mid-tier gaming center GPU. Thank you for watching. Please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Maybe you would like to watch my first video that I posted on this channel that introduces my video format by building a NAS.